Gaming is a massive pastime that is enjoyed by many people around the world. About 2.5 billion people, in fact. From MMORPGs to a first-person shooter, from a platformer to a visual novel, many gamers are able to come together on at least one thing within this huge media. That one thing is music. Music helps to elicit such great emotions or help immerse a player so much that they feel that they're going into the zone, or that one place where almost nothing breaks your concentration and you feel as if you're really there. Music is such a key component in gaming that it's practically impossible to make a great game without it. In fact, there are many games that are entirely possible only because of music. So with that in mind, we wanted to look into how music is used in gaming over various genres. To do this, we wanted to look at the leitmotif of a few different games and see how they are utilized to help make the respective games more immersive for the players. Now for those of you who heard that one L word that spat out of my mouth like 5 seconds ago and don't know what I'm talking about, allow me to enlighten your ears. A leitmotif, that weird little word I said, is, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, an associated melodic phrase or figure that accompanies the reappearance of an idea, person, or situation. The alternate and probably easier to understand definition is a dominant recurring theme. One such example would be from the basic Mario theme. Now a quick disclaimer, we are not professional musicians. We don't have a degree in music, and we're just college students doing a fun project for a music-related class, so don't yell at us in the comments how wrong we are. You're probably right, but we'll try our best to do this well. Okay? Cool. Now that that's out of the way, we're looking at 3 different games today, from entirely different genres. We have Super Mario Galaxy, Undertale, and Gears of War 2. So without further ado, let's look at the different leitmotifs from these games. Super Mario Galaxy, one of Mario's big 3D platformers, was made by Shigeru Miyamoto and was released on November 1st, 2007 for the Nintendo Wii. It featured a good few returning characters as well as some new ones, new levels, planets, as well as, you guessed it, galaxies. This game featured well-built levels that had vibrant colors, fun bosses, and amazing music to go with each level. The main leitmotif can be found almost immediately upon booting up the game and watching the title screen as Mario zips by. This iconic tune is easily recognizable from the get-go, and as it should be, as those first few notes are the leitmotif for the game. Now, the game has many different tunes for its many different levels. Something I noticed when finding examples for the leitmotif usage of this game was that many levels had their own leitmotif, but some, if not all, showed the main motif hidden within each level's soundtrack. Some were subtle, others not so much. The easy to point out versions come from when Mario gets a Grand Star, and when Mario goes to fight Bowser in a battle, but more so in the final battle.
Hey guys, Editing Emilio here to say that when Herfel said the last battle with Bowser, he actually meant the track Bowser's Galaxy Reactor. They're 2 different things, they sound very alike, but we went with Bowser's Galaxy Reactor in the final draft, so basically Herfel's a dingus.
In these instances, these are events more centered around Mario, which we can say from the title screen piece that is to be associated with Mario as the main protagonist of the game. It makes sense especially in the final fight, as this is Mario's primary objective. Get to the center of the universe, fight Bowser, save the princess. End of story. With Grand Star Get, when Mario gets a Grand Star, It celebrates a moment of victory for Mario, as he has defeated another boss and restored power to the Comet Observatory. The next couple of songs from the soundtrack were from Battle Rock Galaxy and Space Junk Galaxy, which feature more subtle references to the main motif rather than just playing it outright. As you can hear in Battle Rock Galaxy, there is a subtle reference to the main motif, or it could also be a modified version of the main motif. But I think this is used to highlight the fact that Mario is still a part of the level, just he isn't the main focus. The firing cannons, the asteroids, and the menacing planet looming above are all part of the main focus. I believe this causes Mario's influence to be lesser on the music overall. Now, for Space Junk Galaxy, the overall galaxy provides a feeling of loneliness. The tune itself is of a depressing tone, and again, when the main leitmotif is featured, it's a bit more subtle of a reference rather than using the direct tune from the title screen. The level's overall design is nothing more than space, and you guessed it, space junk. It provides a feeling of quiet, open, lonely space, which is even more built upon in the level's music. The music once again shows that Mario is a part of the level, but he doesn't encompass the level. There's more to it than him, which is reflected. All in all, the music of Mario Galaxy, I think, tries to show how much of an influence Mario is within certain events. Going from level to level, he doesn't have much impact. When he gets a star or fights a boss, it's easier to recognize the main leitmotif and express how much the situation relies upon it.
Moving on to Undertale. Undertale is a wildly popular indie game made by Toby Fox way back in 2015, when they called 911 with carrier pigeons. And yes, I said is, not was. We'll come back to that. Undertale is an indie action, bullet hell role-playing game, and the game became wildly popular, wildly fast, to the point where it was almost staggering. With the fanbase still thriving over 5 years later, like I said, is, not was. When we talk about Undertale, cringe fanbase aside, it is important to note just how much music is in Undertale. There is a leitmotif for plenty of pivotal characters, along with the leitmotif for the game itself. We could make a whole video essay series on the different music in Undertale and how it is used. Some people already have, but for now, let's just focus on the main theme of the game itself. We are first introduced to the leitmotif of the main game through the song that plays when you first open the game, right away at the start menu. This version of the leitmotif is at its most basic form, super stripped down, but trust me, it will be back later. It comes back later in the track Home. You'll notice that this version is slightly more complicated, but far softer and much more welcoming as you slowly gather your bearings inside Toriel's home, leading you through the new and unfamiliar landscape. This sentiment is repeated in the track Hotel, continuing with the homey and welcoming sense, although notably slightly more layered as the landscape is much more familiar, as the player has had much more time to traverse the landscape and familiarize themselves with the vast array of characters, controls, and mechanics that the game has presented to you. And finally, the last two tracks that we'll be examining today, starting with Save the World. Save the World, as opposed to homey or calm or welcoming, chooses instead to be symphonic, metal, and epic, very reflective of the final moment between Frisk and Azrael as you battle him now that he's absorbed all the power from every monster in the underground and attempt to bring him back to his senses. And to close out our segment on Undertale, we finally examine the track Undertale. Creative name, I know, but consider the context of the ending of this song before we look at it. You've played all the way through the game, probably a couple of times at this point, because you have to play it more than once in order to get this ending. You've seen and met all the characters, dated a couple, maybe even killed a couple if you're, crazy. And finally, you get to look back at the fight you just had with Azrael. Spoiler warning, the barrier is shattered, and you get to watch as the sun rises on you and all of your new friends as they finally are let back into the world that they were banished from so long ago. And as you walk and look at the sunset, the guitar, the soft instruments slowly begin fading in, and the oh so familiar theme that we started with shows itself one final time. The leitmotif of Undertale has taken us through multiple different iterations and situations. A lot of them I didn't even have time to cover in this video. But it alters itself for each and every single time, even if only a little bit, changing for each special moment that it crosses through, as it slowly eases the player into its new surroundings with home and hotel, echoes the epic final battle and the sentiments that are expressed between you and Azrael and Save the World. And finally, it wraps it all up as you're able to enjoy the end of the game in Undertale. Undertale's leitmotif and music as a whole, while it has leitmotifs for the characters and different moments, if we look at the leitmotif for Undertale itself, it's always focused on the context and the moments around the character rather than the character itself. It's music that helps build the world and the environment around you. The other characters have their leitmotifs, and those help build those characters' personalities. But the leitmotif of Undertale itself, is what kickstarts the game and helps build not just the characters even, but the environments around them, and shapes how we feel about the game from moment to moment. And it works really, really well.
Gears of War 2, what used to be one of the bigger franchises for Xbox, was designed by Cliff Bleszinski and developed by Epic Games. Yes, the Fortnite people.
Okay, who likes Fortnite?
Who likes Fortnite?
It released on November 7th, 2008 for the Xbox 360. It has the same cast of characters from the first game, featuring Marcus Phoenix, the main character, his brother-in-arms Dominic Santiago, and few others that make up Delta Squad. The game is a more gritty, darker, third-person cover shooter where Delta Squadron must save the world from the savage locusts, a race of humanoids bent on taking over the surface in search of a new home. The main leitmotif for the game is found within the first 20 seconds of the opening song for the title screen. It provides a darker tone, which really helps to set the mood for the game. What I noticed when researching music for this game is that the soundtrack is quite similar between every track. The songs I chose to look at were Hospital Battle, Rolling Thunder, Heroic Assault, and Autumn of Mankind. For Hospital Battle, it is the first major battle/mission you take on as Marcus. The main motif heard in this song is a more hectic, loud, and sped up version of the original. The song itself helps to show that the situation is dire and that it is a suspenseful moment where the player may be entirely unsure of what'll happen next. The main motif heard is much more noticeable as it helps show that Marcus is very much so needed in this moment to help save the day, and any slip-ups could cost lives. I feel as though this really helps to put the edge on the player and keep them moving through the level carefully. The next song, Rolling Thunder, plays when Marcus begins his ride to Landdown aboard an assault derrick. The song picks up as Delta nears the drilling site, directly above the Locust stronghold, which, as can be heard, is a very epic moment and features many repeated phrases of the main leitmotif. This is due to this part having a crew with higher morale and taking on a massive number of enemies. This is reflected in a more epic version of the main motif that emphasizes more power on each note, really blaring them out. This helps to show how powerful of a moment this will be for the main character Marcus. The next song, and possibly my favorite in the whole soundtrack, is Heroic Assault. This is played during a big speech that Chairman Prescott, leader of the COG, which is the military Marcus fights in, gives to help boost the morale of his soldiers to go take the fight to the Locust's own turf and eradicate them. The main motif isn't really heard until the middle of the song, when the speech Prescott gives is ending. When it plays, it comes out loud and triumphant. I believe this is done more to emphasize that, rather than Marcus being boosted, it is more the whole world being ready to take on the enemy in a last-ditch hurrah to take back full control and wipe out the enemy once and for all. The final song I chose was Autumn of Mankind. The main motif is played off the bat this time, but it seems different. It plays slowly, softly, and instead is played on a piano as a soothing yet depressing statement. The reason being is this song is played when the player, Marcus, dies and fails the mission. It shows that the world really relied on Marcus in this instance, and he wasn't able to pull through. It also plays as sort of a mourning of his death, because the world is now doomed to fall without him. I think this really shows how much the main character really brings the game together and is expressed well in all of the music. But the main motif is also used to show how strong the cause is and its willingness to continue forth and stop the enemy. The music in Gears of War 2 utilizes the main leitmotif a lot, but it does it well to show the changes in emotion of the world around the main character, and sometimes even how Marcus may have changed as a character. Music and gaming, both massive industries and hobbies, and when combined, produce amazing results. With every heartfelt moment, intense battle, or important character, I'm sure that there are many themes that all of us enjoy, and maybe a few of us even admire. But when it comes to the music of video games, I think they're well adapted to help capture the emotion of the player and the world of the game as well. The leitmotifs do seem to be used differently throughout these games and across these different genres. The more lighthearted game of Super Mario Galaxy uses the main leitmotif less to only certain events that really encompass the character, but otherwise will really only reference it. The levels and tone they provide are the more important aspect. Mario Galaxy wasn't built to provide a great story, but it did provide some amazing levels which were really emphasized upon in the usage of the leitmotif and soundtrack for the game. Undertale's leitmotif, however, was built to create a great story, and you'll notice that in each of the different iterations of the start menu theme. As the terrain, the mood, and the scenario changes, so too does the variation in Undertale. From home to save the world, it's clear that the music was built from the ground up with the intention of storytelling. Gears of War 2 uses the main leitmotif a lot. The game itself also has a more story-driven tone to it though. It makes the game more linear because of it, but doesn't necessarily ruin the immersion. It really pushes the player to know who you are playing, what the situation is, and also how dire said situation is. The leitmotif is also expressively stretched throughout the game, taking on many different tones and moods to express the progression of the story and characters. Overall, these games vary their leitmotifs and usage depending on the character, the genre, the story, or lack thereof, and how the world is changing within the game. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.